Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to today's video. We got a story of some cruise passengers who had what can only be called a once-in-a-lifetime experience. An experience that probably can never be repeated. But before we get to that story, we got to talk about Royal Caribbean, because Royal Caribbean, they're having some problems this week. A lawsuit has been filed against Royal Caribbean for an ongoing story, and Royal Caribbean, they've gotten a little fine put on them. But let's start with the Royal Caribbean and their lawsuit. So there was a former crew member on board Symphony of the Seas, Arvin Joseph Marisol, and he was caught putting hidden cameras in passengers' bathrooms, in the cabins. He was accused of being underneath the bed, enjoying himself while filming passengers in different states of undress, including videos of children. Now, we already covered the story when they first found the cameras. We also covered the story when he was sentenced to 30 years in prison for his activities. Well, now one of the passengers involved in this filming has filed a federal lawsuit against Royal Caribbean under the name of Jane Doe to protect her identity and all other similarly situated passengers. So it is, covering everybody that was involved. Now, according to the lawsuit, images of Jane Doe were captured while undressing and engaging in private activities. This occurred during a February cruise, and these images and videos that were taken were uploaded to the internet. And because of the incident, she is suffering from extreme emotional distress, including physical symptoms such as insomnia and dizziness, according to the lawsuit. Now, I clearly agree that this former crew member is a out-of-his-mind mental pervert. Who goes and wants to film cruise passengers? Who wants to hide under beds? And who the hell would want to film children in different states of undress? He got caught. He got 30 years in prison. He deserves every second of that. But the lawsuit, I don't know how I exactly would feel about that, because they are placing the blame on Royal Caribbean. They're saying it's Royal Caribbean's fault that this happened. They're saying that Royal Caribbean failed to provide sufficient security, sufficient training, sufficient supervision. The cruise line didn't warn the guests that such things could happen on board cruise ships. That Royal Caribbean knew or should have known sexual assaults were reasonable, foreseeable, considering the prevalence of sexual assaults on board Royal Caribbean ships. That's the part, I don't know that I agree with. How is Royal Caribbean supposed to foresee that this is going to happen on board a cruise ship? How are they supposed to know that one of their crew members is demented and that he might go into a cabin, put a hidden camera, and upload videos to the internet, that he might hide under a bed, that he has these tendencies? It's not like this is going to come out in the application process. Unless a person has been accused, convicted, caught, or just straight admits that they're this way during the application process, how do you know? How would you know? How could Royal Caribbean have foreseen such an incident? Now, this case will be decided by a jury, and a jury will decide, is Royal Caribbean at fault or not? But what do you guys think? Is this something Royal Caribbean could have prevented? Should they have known ahead of time? Should they have been able to say to passengers, hey, look, this could happen in your cabin. Be aware before you get on the cruise ship. Next, Royal Caribbean, they got a fine in the amount of $470,000 for EPA violations in the port of Galveston. Now, they didn't have an accident. They didn't have a spill. They had a paperwork problem. And according to the EPA, Royal Caribbean had inaccurate amounts of offloaded solid and hazardous waste removed from the cruise ships between July of 2019 and July of 2024. So what they offloaded, what was on the paperwork, apparently were two different things. So just to be clear, it wasn't an environmental impact. They didn't spill anything. They didn't leak anything. They didn't pollute anything. They were fined for documentation errors with the EPA. Because somebody's going to read the headlines that Royal Caribbean was fined for an environmental issue in the port of Galveston, and there are some people out there, the very first thing they're going to think is the ships leaked, spilled, or polluted the areas and waterways around Galveston, and that is not the case. this time at least. And finally, cruise passengers that got to participate in what could only be called a once in a lifetime event, because this is not something that can happen every day. It is not something that can be repeated or replicated. Now, this occurred on the Seabourn Pursuit, which is a luxury expedition cruise ship. They were doing tours off the coast of Chile. This was a submarine excursion. Now, this discovery occurred on October the 14th. While on the submarine tour, they were out looking for a World War I German transport ship, the Titiana, that had been lost or last seen in 1914. So they knew the ship had gone down somewhere in this vicinity, but it has not been found. It has not been discovered. They found pieces of it. They found metal fragments from it that they believe were connected to it, but nobody had actually yet found the shipwreck. Well, weather conditions were perfect. The sea conditions were perfect. And these cruise passengers happened to be in the right spot, the right time, looking in just the right area, and bam, they have found the wreck of a ship lost all the way back in 1914, a World War I German supply ship found and discovered on their cruise excursion. Now, they did confirm that no other submarines and no other divers had visited the wreck before. They confirmed it had not been located, nobody had been reporting it, and nobody had claimed to have discovered its exact location prior to this cruise tour. So for these cruise passengers, this submarine excursion, they are now officially a part of maritime history. So talk about the ultimate cruise story, the one that you can come back, tell the family, tell the friends, tell on your next cruise, and almost guaranteed nobody else sitting around you is going to be like, I've done that, I've been there, I've seen that before. It is going to be a unique once in a lifetime story. And that's going to be our video for today. If you've enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there's having a really great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.